Hi HR Nation, it's Chris Rainey. Welcome to HR Leaders, the show where we interview today's most successful and innovative HR practitioners 5 days a week. Today we have 3 special guests. This is a first, guys, by the way. It's the first time we've had 3 people on the show, so really excited to have you all involved. First off, we have JC Bourgade, co-founder of the learning engagement platform 360 Learning. And we have 2 amazing guys from Criteo, Francois Fournier, Global Director of Learning and Management Development. And we also have Nicolas, Sejourné, Digital Learning Manager. Guys, welcome to the show. How are you all?
Thank you. Welcome, very good. And we're nice to pioneer with you that 3 guys in front of you format.
It's going to be great for everyone listening. It's going to be a very interesting show. Before we get started, let's start with yourself, JC. Give our listeners a little bit about your background personally and your journey to where we are now.
Okay, so thanks first of all, Chris, for having us on the show. We're very excited to pioneer these 3 people, I would say, show. So I'm the co-founder of 360 Learning. Before starting the 360 Learning venture, I've had 5 years of experience in the training, e-learning, digital learning industry. I've always been passionate about transferring skills, building skills, and how to streamline and maximize and make this process as efficient as possible. Yes, I've partnered with Guillaume and Nicolas, who are the 2 other co-founders of the company 5 years ago, on let's just say the vision that to be successful, learning will always have to be a collective and social adventure. So that's basically what put us together. And we felt like the existing set of technologies were not really facilitating this process. And since then, the adventure has been pretty amazing. We've been grown to a 100 people company in a span of 4 years. And now I'm responsible to try to continue this adventure, but in a completely different settings in the US, where we've set up our office in New York City, where I'm sitting right now.
Amazing. What an exciting journey. And how did you come across our 2 other guests? How long have you guys been working together?
Well, turns out that Francois and us, we have quite a lot of history. We've met at quite a few times, but more specifically when Criteo was looking to have a platform to accelerate and to help them support their hyper growth. I remember when we got in touch the first time, basically they were expecting us. But they were expecting to find a partner that would enable them to be ready in 3 to 4 weeks after we started working together. So they wanted to have something super quick, super fast. This is really the typical example.
That's what everyone wants, right? That's what I said to you, JC. I said, when can I get it? How long?
When can I get it? But I have to say with Criteo, that was pretty peculiar. They were more demanding than the average type of companies that we would work with. Typically, organizations say they want to go fast, but Criteo really meant it. They had to do it fast. So that's what we came across because they wanted to implement this CRM inside the organization. They wanted a system to support it, and they wanted to be ready in 3 to 4 weeks from that time. And since then we've been growing together, and here we are to talk about the story and how we supported them in making this happen.
Amazing, Francois. Let our listeners know a bit about yourself. In your role?
First, I'm rebounding on GC1. I think we are still very demanding. Fast track was something key. And you might know GC, but we have 3 operating principles. And one of them is go, go, go. So no surprise that we wanted to go fast. So on my side, Francois, I started my career as civil engineer in energy and process, so quite a brick and mortar area. But after 3-4 years, I had my epiphany moment when I discovered from within more consultancy and a training position. And from there, that was late 99, I started my career there. And then I was in service provider, training firm, consultancy firm for European player, small niche player that I co-founded with some peers. And 7-8 years ago, I wanted to go on the other side of the scene or the curtain, but moving back to corporate learning world. I made that in a world leader in a 3D or product lifecycle management, setting up a corporate university and leading a sales academy. and I joined Criteo 3 years ago to set up a global learning and management development function. Exciting journey at Criteo. Exciting time for learning and development with many things that are disrupting our function and making it even more exciting. So I'm really pleased to navigate the future of learning and development with my colleagues, peers in that context.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Nicolas.
So my name is Nicolas. I started in consulting, and after a few years doing consulting in France, I moved to Criteo, and that was already more than 6 years ago. So for the Criteos, I'm kind of, part of the old dinosaurs guys. And so I had different roles, and that was in the learning area. And my new role now is as a digital learning manager that actually I'm just starting now. And I've been working with 360 Learning already for almost 3 years with different kind of experience, and onboarding for Criteos everywhere in the world was one of the biggest challenge we had, and that we are also very happy to work with 360 on such a big challenge. And this is really a key achievement that we had in the past years.
When you've reached out to do, what was the challenge that you were facing? Because there's so many platforms out there, there's so many solutions. So, why 360 Learning? What did you explore before them? And what was the challenge you was facing as a business?
We had a compelling reason to act. And I think it's important when you engage in a digital learning strategies that you have the right star alignment. So we had a compelling reason to act, which was a business need that make it obvious and no-brainer that digital was a need. How we reach out to 800 people over a few weeks in a very effective manner. The second thing is indeed what kind of experiences we wanted to do, because as GC said initially, that was just about rolling out online content related to new CRM tools. But obviously, if we are able to implement such technology, what else can we do, and what's in it for me, for any employee? And this is where we looked at something that offers us the flexibility to not only convey third-party content, but also easily enable our subject matter experts and leaders, author, broadcast, share, in-house content. And we wanted to show something that Criteo is a young, global high-tech firm. We have young people. I think the average age is 30, 32. So we wanted also something which is modern and has a similar look and feel and experience as most of the apps that people are using in their day-to-day life.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I said to JC when I first came across the platform. I almost felt like I'd already used it. It felt like every other normal social platform that I'd already used before. So the learning curve there really wasn't a learning curve, if I'm honest. It was pretty easy in this day and age for someone to pick it up and just get going and use it. It feels like almost, I always say to JC, you have the incredible social element of like a LinkedIn platform, and then you have the power of like a platform like a Netflix combined in one platform, and it feels you want to use it. In terms of the corporate learning world, as you mentioned earlier, there's been huge disruption in the corporate learning world, right? And we have this sort of epidemic of disengagement when it comes to learning. How have you seen 360 Learning help that within your own organization?
Yeah, maybe a few things there. As we can say, we know all about disengagement. We know about the limited attention span. I think there are recent research that say that on average, an employee can have 24 minutes a week that he can focus on learning new things, 5 minutes a day. So we have that dilemma. I mean that on one hand, people are genuinely looking to develop themselves. Everybody wants to be a better and better self. I want to be better equipped to perform today or tomorrow. But on the other side, we have infobesity. We have a lot of things that we need to that are competing on our attention span, many priorities, and so we have that learner dilemma or that learner schizophrenia that say, I want to grow, but I don't have time for that. And so that's a reality. Have we found a silver bullet or a magic stick? Probably not. If I look to the data, we are a data-driven company, so it's nurture also both our insights on measure of impact. We can see that on what we create, notably what we create in-house, we have great engagement rates, meaning that when we are making something available or pushing to a targeted audience, 70-80% of the people engage into that content, and we have great completion rates. For those who engage, we are reaching 80, 90 to 100% on some program, not necessarily mandatory one, which means that I think we found a good way of creating content, publishing content, engaging with the audience, and making it compelling enough so that people can see what's in it for me and drive them to good learning experience.
And JC, was this something you had in mind when you were building the platform?
Yes, from going back to all the different points that you put forward, I like, first of all, that you compared our platform to Netflix and LinkedIn. We also like to consider ourselves as the Instagram of learning. And I just would like to explain why I'm talking about Instagram, because one thing that makes Instagram pretty special, if you think about it, is the place where people create and the place where people publish is the same. Like, it really reduced the frictions. And that's why Instagram has millions of people that are using it. It's not as sophisticated as Photoshop. If you think about it, with Photoshop, you can do much more things, but Photoshop, there's only a limited number of people who can use it. So the way we've designed the product is to say, we want to really unleash the knowledge from all the different experts inside the company, what Francois and Nicolas was referring to. So the doers, the makers, the head of marketing, the head of R&D. I think they're very legitimate people to help, for example, the sales team perform better and improve their pitches, right? So we want to empower these people to easily create and share knowledge with the rest of the organizations. And that was really something that we believe we're missing in helping companies to transform their culture and really become learning organization. And on the other side, Chris, for us, when we started this whole thing, we were always pretty amazed by the low engagement rate that our clients and even ourselves as learners, we were experiencing in the companies that we were having, and how much addicted we were to these new systems that were emerging, like Facebook, like, again, LinkedIn, Netflix, that basically it was almost the opposite. We had to cut down the usage from this system because people were spending 10 to 15 times a day. So we looked at this system and we thought to ourselves, what is it that makes this system so engaging for learners? Is that sophisticated content? Do I see a lot of mascots, for example, on Facebook? No. So the conclusion was, it's the community experience, the possibility for people to see something fresh every time they connect to the platform, because it's easy for people to create content. The ability to get feedback. We thought that it was something that would probably have a much higher impact on engagement than, for example, having extremely sophisticated content. So that's how that's the reason why we've embedded what we call human interactions at the heart of the experience. And this is what also we've tried to make it as easy as possible to create content for leaders and doers and makers.
Mm-hmm. And for yourself, Nicolas, as the digital learning manager, how have tools like 360 Learning empowered you in your role?
Well, I think, and maybe back in the time that, I was really launching something new with the onboarding at Criteo. So we had basically, we were relying only on live sessions, classroom kind of training for our learners and newcomers. And we really tried to implement something where actually the experience could be consistent. So if you are joining Criteo, let's say in a big hub like Paris, New York, or in a small office like Sydney or Amsterdam, then the idea is that we try to have the same experience everywhere, to avoid that, again, if you're joining in a certain place, you won't get the same information delivered in the same way. So we still have those live sessions, but we try to optimize spending less time, so it reduces the time for the trainers, and have more time spent online with a global consistency kind of approach where we could deliver nice content through the platform and then have everyone really engage and, then the learning approach, trying to have a little bit of rapid learning and then engage with the learners, classroom, more interaction, quiz questions, and really have a different learning experience from day one.
Mm-hmm. So do you, just out of interest, do you take the recordings of those live interactions, upload those into 360 Learning so the interactions can continue? Is that something?
We chose not to because actually the real interaction that the learners will have is if they are connecting to a remote session that is live or in a classroom,
mm-hmm.
not if they just sit and listen to something that was recorded and they need to stay in front of their screen for like, let's say 30 minutes. So it's really not the use case here. So we tried to promote that blended learning approach to as much as we can. And that's my job internally as a digital learning manager, to push for more usage and more blended. And again, the idea is not to push everything online because we know that the classic, e-learning is not a good experience. So trying really to switch from a big e-learning or that is an extreme or on everything done in classroom, that would be the other extreme, but have rapid learning and shorter live sessions, a mix of that in a smart way, really trying to engage more with the learners and also use the social functionalities so that they can interact within a group of people and comment and also participate to the feedback loop. So we improve those programs on a quarterly basis.
In terms of the online communication and the social element, have you identified some standout talent through that? Because one of the things that I'm excited about and I'm interested to get your thoughts on is, are you seeing that there's particular employees that are really engaging more in the actual communication and in the social feeds?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's both on the trainers / authors side, but also just on the learner side, try to identify the ones that are comfortable with the technology and will kind of really boost the usage of social functionalities. And usually it's really to try to make the program even better. So maybe just flagging some stuff that should be updated, or if they think that another format would be more appropriated, then they would flag it to us. And I'm just starting now to identify what community could, those could be local champions. And also
that's what I mean,
over 30 offices, so we need to try to cover the different regions. And that is why, yes, identifying these more active users.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I love in the analytics, that you can do that. You can see who straight away, who's the guys that are engaged, who's using it, identify those guys and use those as your sort of champions of the program as well. And a lot of programs don't offer that. I think that's quite an essential part of it as well. Have you had leaders in the business that have come to you saying, I would like to upload something into the program, into the software?
So there can be authors or just people who participated to the program that think adding a document or adding a link would be useful. And so they obviously will offer to participate. And I think part of my job now is going to re-identify those people and try to rely on them to, for each region, boost everything that we're trying to do centrally, because we're based in Paris and it's kind of still hard to reach everyone the same way. Obviously.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I was excited about having you guys on, both JC and both of you on the show, is that this is a big challenge for the HR leaders that we work with and the learning leaders. There's almost so many, every day there's a new LMS platform popping up. Every day there's a new tool, there's a new piece of software. It's almost overwhelming for the leaders that I speak to on a daily basis, and everyone claims to solve your challenges, right? And they all have some similar features, but in completely different price points. It's a bit of a nightmare for them in terms of making a decision. Now, having gone through this process together, what advice would you give to other HR leaders when they're starting that journey and looking to invest in a platform such as 360 Learning? What questions should they be asking?
And with humility, I don't know what might be a perfect answer, because I think it's really contextual. And again, back to Criteo, I think our strength was that really learning was in our DNA. But when I joined, Nicolas was already there doing heavy lifting. There was no digital technology. So everything was either face-to-face, instructor-led, or social, peer-to-peer. So the chance we had is that we had a blank paper, greenfield, no legacy, no assets. So that simplifies the choice. After, I think for me, the two things that are important is what is your vision? And I think we were able very quickly to align key stakeholders on a vision of what we dreamed or wanted digital learning stand for at Criteo at an horizon of 2 or 3 years. So we knew the potential, and we had an idea of where we wanted to go. And I think the second thing is also test and learn. What I mean is that from the initial use case we had 24 months ago to now, we have made a giant leap. And we are now much more mature in what we do. I think we have, again, 2 years ago, we had zero digital learning. Today, I think we have more than 1,000 objects that we are managing, half being in-house outward, half externally curated. Today, digital learning weighs 60% of the formal training that we are managing at the company scale, so from 0 to 30% in less than 80 months. So we have also much more mature use cases that have emerged. We are still pushing hard on GC and 360 learning on some features to influence the roadmap, even if we know we are a small customer, older customer. And to come to your point, we stay, I think, we keep a continuous watch about the market evolution, the trends. Sometimes also we step back. It's not just to have fancy technology for the sake of having fancy technologies. Is what is your business case? You bring really additional added value to your learner experience, to your digital learning ecosystem. After we know that one fit all is less and less a reality on that market. So for us, very quickly, and the strategy at 1 or 2 years is what might be the best of breed architecture where it's effective in terms of implementation and it's seamless in terms of employee experience. Easy to say, hard to operationalize. So this is where we are.
Mm-hmm. It's great that thank you for outlining their vision and business case, because you're right, you have to start at the business case. It doesn't really matter. You can have all of the tools in the world, but does it fit what you want to achieve as an organization, as a business? I still have the question though, that once you have that vision and once you and understand what the need is, then how do you start? Where do you what are you looking for? How do you narrow down the platforms to something like 360 learning? What was the process that looked like for both of you, for yourself and the team? Where did you start?
As a matter of fact, we teamed up with Nicolas at that time. He was in another team, but he was also one of the very first early adopters of the potential of the digital learning technology. So from the first day, we teamed up on there. And as I mentioned, in our context, we had a company reason, which was there was an identified project where we need to deliver it. But that was a very small or narrow one. But at least it helped to trigger or incept the decision to go. What we did at that time is two things. Is how we can quickly expand the value proposition to all employees. That we made more in how we can broaden our portfolio of content with third-party curated, so that we can give resource for food or what's in it for me for every employee, whatever job, whatever roles. And the other thing, to come back to your point, business case, we identified 2 or 3 topics for which there was an obvious return on investment in digitizing or shifting or reinventing the way we were doing our delivery. And those 2 things, in our case, were the onboarding, because we were in a hyper-growth context, international, so we had to become an onboarding factory with great first days at Criteo. And it was product enablement. We were starting product diversification with also for our sales team, so they can be equipped very easily with new features, new products. So that were 2 obvious cases where in-house experts, subject matter experts, were also very clear on the potential of the digital technologies, and they were the early adopters, and they are today no more our pioneer. They are our hardcore user of digital learning technology.
Mm-hmm. Great. So thank you for sharing those use cases. I'm glad I asked that question, because that's a lot where a lot of the leaders are thinking, where do I start? What do I start with? We're actually working with JC right now as a business, and one of my first questions I had to ask myself is, where do we start? We have so much content, we have so many areas that we know it can improve an organization, but where do we start? What's going to give the most value to the business? And of course, going through hyper growth, onboarding is the best. It's the perfect example where this of a use case of where this can come into place. And of course, you mentioned the product development, right, as well. So that's fantastic. So for yourself, Nicolas, were you very much tasked with going out there and finding a platform to make this happen? Is that the case? Was that the case?
So at that time, I think I had revamped the onboarding program maybe twice already, and at some point you reach your limit. So that was really the time not only to change slides or colors or a little bit of content, but really change the learning experience and have, as a new joiner, a learning path that would be impactful and really different from what we used to do. And actually we measured both with the learners, the satisfaction rate that was pretty high, but also with the trainers, because they used to spend time reading slides for like an hour and not engaging at all. And for them it was fine, but they thought they were interactive. But when we moved to something completely different, reduce the time they were talking, reducing the amount of slides as well, and really doing some active learning. They were telling me, like one person told me it's day and night, like completely different. Thank you for implementing this, because as a trainer, it's also much more interesting to have the blended learning and kind of have people come into the room with smart questions already, because they did let's say 10-12 minutes module on my topic, and now I can start with quizzing and do some role play and have something much more interactive. So I was already looking at doing something different, and working with learning on what could we do together, and also go fast, the go that we apply here almost every day. It's really something that we needed, and that's why I think that was successful. In like the first month, actually, when we launched the platform.
May I just jump in, because there was something you were asking earlier about how do you, as a company, can choose a partner considering how crowded the learning technology space is. I would say something that has been working pretty well for us, and that I would advise all HR leaders or potential buyers of technology to do, and I think, Chris, also this is something that helped you make your decision, is testing the
all of them.
And this is something that not a lot of actually HR buyers are thinking about doing, and nowadays, like, a lot more players are very open, and you should ask, I believe, all the potential LMS vendors to test their system for free, to test from a course creation point of view, to test from an experience point of view, because obviously everybody's going to say that they have the most compelling experience. The only way for you to give us yourself to have an opinion about this is to test it. So my only take on this subject is ask the vendors if you can test the system for at least 15 days a month. And usually this is where you can see major difference in usability.
Yeah, and I found that too. I tested, I think, about 9 different platforms, downloaded the free trials, went through everything one, and there were a few after half an hour. I was like, this is not for me. It's taking way too long to even, I'm just setting up my initial profile. It's taking me a few hours, and the amount of stuff I need to go through to customize the platform and the user experience, immediately it was a no. There's multiple platforms that I went through, and some platforms that had so many different functionalities that we'd never use as a business, but we would be paying for all of the functionality. I'm sure you guys have found many of the companies bundle in the learning, the LMS with other packages and other software that they have in the organization. If you think about the larger organizations, I'm not going to mention names, but there are many large organizations out there that now throw in LMS as an add-on, and I'm sure you guys know who they are. And you can't get it without buying the bigger package. So that's also quite frustrating. And then many, like you said, JC, they don't give you an option on the website to go in and test it. You have to ask, which I always find crazy, because you want people to use it. You want them to do it. And I've seen a lot of the more smaller organizations, the more disruptive companies, I could definitely put you in that category, JC, are like, use it, please. Get in there, play around with it, use it. And I think before I even spoke to JC, I had 8 videos in there. It already uploaded. I had 4 communities already planned, already set up before I even spoke to you, JC, which it was very easy to do so. So very interesting. Before we wrap up, guys, and this is a big question, but I do want to get your opinion, both JC and both of you. What do you guys think the future of learning looks like? Because it's huge. It's transformed massively. Even in the last 3 to 4 years, it's completely changed. So I'll start with yourself, JC. What does the future of learning look like in your mind?
We're going to see a trend where more and more L&D departments and business will be working closer together. Like there's all topics on integrated learning into the flow of work. I think this is something that platform needs to get better at, and to really enable continuous learning to happen, and for employees to be really able to ask for learning on demand. Learning has to really help people solve the problems that they have today to perform at a higher level. So really what I see is more experts, more leaders, more people involved in knowledge sharing within the organization. And as a consequence, learning becomes more on demand, has a stronger business value, and helps people perform at a higher level. And another, I believe, trend that we're going to see, but this is maybe more about 360 learning vision. Again, we believe that human feedback, the ability for people to tell you whether or not what you're giving them as a training program is useful, is very important. So for instance, I think systems will reinforce the wealth of reactions and feedbacks that learners can get. Today, you can only basically see whether people are satisfied and through surveys or through likes, for example, and you know the time that they've spent. Tomorrow, you will be able to know activity per activity. Did they find this confusing? Was that useful for them to sell more? Do they think it has value in their job? So dashboard would give a richer set of reactions that would enable trainers and experts to really customize the approach that they have to every learner. So that's what I believe the short-term future holds.
Big question on the.
It is a big question, right?
Podcast just on that one. But first, I step back. For me, everything lies in the word learning, and I think the big shift. And I think that the most mature organization have started or have gone through that shift is moving from a training fulfillment to really a learning organization. Which is tapping in all the modalities and no more looking to wall garden between the formal training, but also how we create learning experience with instructor-led, in-class, online, creating human interaction, peer-to-peer network of mentors or coach, on-the-job reinforcement. And it's also the ability to is here, the value proposition of learning and development. We are there to accelerate business transformation. We are there to help people reaching high performance and engagement on their job today and tomorrow. We are there to help fostering lifelong learning and growth mindset. Or we are there to boost engagement and organizational development. So really play on all those pillars on the learning value proposition. And after personally, and Nicolas might smile, I'm a firm believer of the end. And what I mean is that I do believe in the learning, which is both push, prescribed, because at some point you need to give some guidance, you need to give some path, you need to give some visibility, and self-directed, learner-led. I do believe in third-party content, good curation of high-quality content in terms of breadth and depth, and in-house authored content and interaction. And for me, if I look to learning, it comes to be the retail world. Today, retail is probably one of the industry which is the most disrupted by digital technology. And it's really a matter of no more growth, but survival. And we have many examples, the last one being Sears. And if we look to retail, it's no more a question of are you offline or online. It's how to tap in all the potential of e-commerce, mobile commerce, in-app, but also in-store, drive-to-store, augmented experience in the store, augmented reality, virtual reality. You have to eat, breathe, live customer data and customer insight to understand the customer journey and behaviors. And for me, if we look to learning, we are all producers and consumers of learning content and learning resources. We are prosumers. And for me, all what we can see in the retail world is what we should strive to apply in the learning world. Same story.
I completely agree with you both. There's so much to take in there. And I love your last part because that's something I'm always talking about. You have to be where your learners are, right? If your learners are listening via podcast, then be there. If they want to watch it via video, be there. If they want to read it, right? And we've started doing that even as a small startup ourselves in order to go from zero marketing budget to now having 500,000 listeners per month on the podcast and our content is because we were everywhere. I was like, you want to listen to it on Spotify? We're on Spotify. If you want to listen to it on Google Play, we're on Google Play. If you want it on YouTube, we have the YouTube videos. And everyone can access our content anywhere, any device, anywhere in the world. And if you're not doing that as a business and if you're not giving them the same experience internally in the organization that they're getting externally, then you're going to fail. You know, people are not going to consume the content.
Absolutely.
As well. And I love your part as well, talking about the continuous learning. Learning shouldn't be an occasion. It shouldn't be an annual review or a quarterly workshop or catch up. It should be an ongoing experience within the business as well. And I love that part, and I love how the platform or all of the platform allows you to do that and encourages you to want to do that as well. And engaging with your peers along the way as well to keep you in there. That's really what keeps people engaged and in the conversation, right, as well. So thank you so much for guys for providing some great insights. I know our listeners will be a lot better off for it. So I appreciate you all taking the time out to share your experience with us. Before we wrap up, if there's one parting piece of guidance you can give to our listeners, what would that be? And also, what's the best way to get in contact with you guys if our listeners have any questions or want to connect with you?
No, I think what you've said is very true. Technologies are an enabler. They're not an end in itself. So whatever you do, think about the bigger picture first, your particular use case, and the technology comes second. And whatever happens, and it comes from a guy that works in technology, human will always be the engagement factor. Never neglect the impact of having engaged people to make your programs work. So that's the advice that I would give. And as far as where you can reach us, so you can send me a message directly on my email. I'm always very happy to share on what we're doing. So my email is jc.bourgade, so Bourgade @ 360learning.com. Right. So very happy to connect with you. And Chris, thanks again for setting this up. And also big kudos to Francois and Nicolas, who gives us their precious time to share their story. Again, we're very proud to have them as our customers, our demanding customers, and very happy that they took some time to share their stories with us today. That's really, truly appreciated.
Francois, Nicolas, I'm sure our listeners are going to have a lot of questions for both of you. What's the best way they can get in contact if they have any questions or love to reach out to you guys?
So I think an easy way is just on LinkedIn to reach out if they want to know more about anything, we did in the past or we are currently doing. And just also to answer your question, I think that so the human factor is very important. And also to answer to the learning dilemma that Francois mentioned, I think that the sponsorship of the direct management is very important. It's really key because you could be willing to develop yourself if you don't have time, if it's not a part of your priorities. No matter the platform, no matter the offer you have, you will never get there. So very important that each manager take that into account and really sponsor it for his or her own team. That's really, I think, the key.
Fantastic. Well, guys, for everyone listening, you can head over to hrleaders.com. You'll find all of the show notes on the episode. Everything we were talking about will be linked there. If you want to learn more about 360 Learning, head over to 360learning.com. You can start your trial now. So test it yourself. Don't take our word for it. Go on there, test it out. Compare it to what you already have. And if you've got any questions, unfortunately, don't complain to me, guys, because you guys are all going to get a lot of questions from our listeners. So just be warned that you may have a lot of LinkedIn messages tomorrow. So thank you again, guys, for coming on the show. And I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.